Welcome to the Valley Center Theater's presentation of Portrait of Emma. We are privileged to hear two of the songs written by Joseph and Emma Smith's son, David Hiram Smith, born after the martyrdom of the prophet. The first song, Let Us Pray for Each Other, will be heard before the performance. The second, Worldly Cares, will be at the end of the performance. Both songs are sung by Eugene Kovalenko.
Let us pray for one another, for the day is fading fast, and the night is growing darker, while the scourge goes flaming past. We can see it in the darkness, closing round our narrow way, and the snares are growing thicker. For each other let us pray. We are walking down time's vista. We are very near the end. Let us pray that God the Father will His guiding Spirit send. Now the foe becomes more daring, knowing well the latter day. 'Tis the strength of his despairing. For each other let us pray. Pray in faith, and pray unceasing, to the God we love and trust. For our prayers are much availing, if we walk upright and just. Be not weary of exhorting, heed the lesson of each day, and that we may be unwavering. For each other let us pray. It is waning on toward midnight. Soon we'll hear the watchman say, see, the Son of God is coming. Go and meet him on the way. That our lamps may then be burning, bright enough to guide our way, and that we may share his glory. For each other let us pray.
Hello. I am delighted that you came. I know how difficult it was for some of you to make that arrangement. And I hope this evening will be fulfilling to you as I know it will be to me. I have here a picture of my father's farm and the story I wish to share with you. All began right here. It was July 10th, 1804, and the early morning sun streamed warmly over the eastern hills, bathed the little farmhouse in rose and gold. A simple farm it was, and there were evidences of honest comfort. Cows were filing slowly out of the log barn into the rail-fenced pasture, plump and content. They waded knee-deep into the sweet red clover. Smoke curled skyward from the little clay and stone chimney of the house, and the door was open, and a woman's voice was heard calling from within. Voices answered, and the morning was well underway. I, Emma Hale, into this world. My father, Isaac Hill, he was a tall, muscular man of 46 years, and his ancestors were English to the core. Father was actually more of a hunter than of a farmer, but he felt that his growing family to support needed the stable life of farming, and that was his best choice. My mother, Elizabeth, was also English. She was a kind, gentle woman with much wisdom. A neighbor once said of her, "I never come away from talking to Elizabeth that I do not feel I have learned something." Well, after their marriage in 1790, Father and Mother made the 225-mile journey from Wellingborough to Wells, Virginia, now Harmony, Ladue County, Pennsylvania, and here is where they were living when I was born. Well, a pioneer Father had been. And he hoped his pioneering days were over now. He was content now to stay at home. Well, Father had watched with many others the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America. I can just hear him now. Can it actually mold 13 jealous, quarrelsome colonies into one? Well, for 17 years, Father had watched, and the experiment seemed to be working. The first president of the United States, Father's old Commander-in-Chief, George Washington, had served well, and to the surprise of many, had no desire whatever to be king. John Adams had followed, and he too had retired with a sincere dignity and a desire to serve under the new president. And now Thomas Jefferson was president. Well, his integrity was known well. In 1804, the territory of the United States grew tremendously, almost overnight. For Napoleon, needing more money for his war with Spain, had sold to Jefferson for a comparatively small sum the vast lands of the Mississippi Valley. Oh, what a country, Father had said. He was content to remain at home, but what of us, his children? He would ask frequently, "Where in this huge, raw territory will you settle? And what part will you play in the building of this vast land?" Well, Father could not have guessed what life would bring to us, his children. My earliest recollections were that of swinging in the swing that Father made us. It hung in the old elm tree right outside of our kitchen window. Oh, and then I remember I was a good help to my mother, helping Mother prepare the evening meals, and from those experiences, I became quite a good cook at a considerably young age. Oh, and I was a very good companion to my brothers while hunting for lizards in the woodpile. There's one, Alva, right there under that log. See? Oh, and there's another. Gone? Where? Up my leg? Oh, stop it, Albert. You're such a tease. But probably the dearest memories of all were that of running from the farmhouse to meet Father when he would come home from the fields. And I remember I would run toward him, and he would whisk me up into his strong, large arms and carry me toward the house. And I remember thinking, with a love like this, what else could ever be of more importance? Well, when I grew into a young lady, I had the rare opportunity of attending a young woman's finishing school. And well, my when the maple trees were crimson and gold in the glow of the setting sun, that a group of young men came plodding along the road together, for they were tired and hungry and hoping for a good meal that night. At the head of the company of men walked Father. He had gone over to the Stowe farm, a gesture of courtesy, to escort the young men home. Well, Mother, she greeted them cordially at the door. And I was standing at the back of the room, tending to an open kettle on the fire. And as the young men filed and washed and filed into the long table, Father came up beside me and said, "Emma, I would like you to meet Mr. Joseph Smith." And I remember as I turned, I saw standing before me a tall, broad-shouldered young man, not quite out of his teens, but near my same age. His face was frank and open, and he had the clearest, kindest blue eyes I had ever seen. Oh, suddenly I became very shy, for I quickly said, "Your servant, ma'am." "How do you do, sir?" And he too became very shy, for he quickly said, "Your servant, ma'am." Well, as the October days grew shorter and the evenings longer, Joseph often remained a good portion of the evening with us after supper. And occasionally we would even take a short stroll down the turnpike under the clear moon and bright stars. And we would talk, as young people do, about the serious things of life. Well, you see, a young girl could only prepare for one career, marriage. But a young man, why, he could plan for many occupations, and that is why I asked, with an interest perhaps deeper than my heart would allow me to admit, just what he intended to do with his life. Well, at first, he did not answer, and thinking he hadn't heard, I turned quickly to repeat my question. And there in the moonlight, I saw his face, pale, strange. His eyes were glowing, yet they were full of tears. I cannot say at this time, Miss Hale, just what my life's work may be. I think it probable that I will be some sort of a minister. I have a story that I want to tell you. I've tried to tell you for some time, but what I say will sound strange, but please believe it to be the truth. Joseph then became completely unaware of me, and he told me the story of the two visions he had had. At first, I was a little frightened. But as he continued to talk, I too was caught up with that same beautiful spirit which seemed to be about him. And so you see, Miss Emma, I have a work that I must do. I cannot disappoint God of all that he asks of me. Do you believe me? Oh, I felt my soul strangely stirred. I had been deeply moved by the Spirit of God during the Joseph, I do believe you. I believe every word. Later that night, I sat for a long time in my room. As the candle burned low, I took a wrap and wrapped it about me against the cold. I had heard this night had shaken me to the very core of my being. And yet I believed it to be perfectly true. Oh, how sweet Joseph had been. For you see, he had not dwelt overly on the persecution he had suffered. But the relief and the joy that came into his expression when I told him I believed him were evidence to me his word had not always been accepted. I was so happy. And I remember I wanted my parents to hear this from Joseph's own lips. It did not occur to me that they would doubt it. I still remember Father's very words after hearing Joseph's story. Sir, what you say may be true. I am not the man to say that it is not. But I do say that it does not sound so to me, and I will thank you not to speak of it again in our home. I understand that your work will soon be over at the Stoll farm, and that you will be leaving for your home in York State. Good night to you, sir. My mother and my father and all of my brothers and sisters chose to believe the cruel, evil things that were being said of Joseph. Instead of taking the time to learn what was in his heart. Oh, I must admit that at first I had my apprehensions too. I found myself wondering, am I so interested in Joseph the man that I am foolishly ignoring everything else? However, I did not entertain those thoughts for long, because I knew that from the very first moment of our acquaintance, we had a very special relationship. And when it came time for Joseph to leave, we had a clear understanding of our feelings. But we said nothing because of Father's hostility, nor made no plans for the future except to write. And Joseph returned to his home in York State for almost a year. And he wrote once a month as he had promised. He had the mail sent to the home of a friend of mine, as in my father's home. He did not speak his name. Well, pretty soon it was time for Joseph to come for me, and I had been staying with a friend when he arrived, the same friend that had sent my correspondence, where he had sent my correspondence. And when he saw me, he put the question to me simply. Emma, you know that I love you. I have tried to show you as clearly as I am able to at present which way my life may turn. And I have told you what my parents' home is like. I would be happy and honored if you would marry me. Oh, the joy flooded my heart. Almost at once, doubt assailed me. I needed was the love that Joseph and I shared. Well, we knew that we would never have my parents' consent for our marriage, even though Joseph was 21, and I would be 23 on my next birthday. So Joseph called for me the following morning, and he helped me into the carriage, and he put a warm soapstone at my feet. And that afternoon, we were married at the home of Squire Tarbell, the Justice of the Peace. January 18th, 1827. Well, I was accepted warmly in the Smith home, and I immediately felt a genuine affection for Father Smith and warm-hearted, loyal Lucy. Joseph said it was my quiet manner and willingness to serve that won their admiration quickly. Well, you see, I had been trained well by my mother, and it wasn't long until my bread and churned butter tasted as delicious as Lucy's own. Kind, gentle Lucy. She did always regard me with much love and respect. Well, in the Smith farm, Joseph's religious experiences were thought of as real and treated as such. And where they never lost their beauty or spiritual quality, I found myself anxiously awaiting the time that I could be allowed to, Joseph would be allowed to take the place from where he had seen them. It was September 21st, and I quickly changed into my long black riding habit. I tiptoed across the kitchen floor as not to awaken Father and Mother Smith. And Joseph was waiting outside in a borrowed wagon from Joseph Knight's farm. And we rode quickly, silently along the road toward the hill. When we arrived at the hill, Joseph took the lantern and left me there in the wagon. As I watched them go higher and higher up the hill until finally the lantern stopped, was lowered and still. I was shaking, but not from fear. It was from a feeling of unreality and awe. Finally, Joseph returned, and as he climbed into the wagon, I took the reins, for in his hands he was carrying something very heavy, wrapped in a piece of towel sacking. And again, we did not speak on the way home, but shared in that same awesome spirit. It must have been midnight when we left the hill behind. And it was at my great disappointment that Joseph did not show me the place. Oh, he said he had been directed not to show them to anyone, and he wanted to be true to his trust. And he said to me, Emma, you have taken so much on faith. Can you take this also, my dear? Well, if I'd wanted to, I could have seen them frequently, for they were simply kept in our room in a wooden box that Alva had made us. And later, when Joseph was translating, they were kept on the table with simply a linen cloth covering them. Joseph's absolute confidence in my honesty consoled me greatly. Well, up until this time, I had always lived the life of the average hard-working farm girl. And now I found myself living in the midst of constant danger, greed and ruthlessness. Time and time again, the plagues had to be secreted them from those who sought them. Everyone was certain that Joseph did not have them, but yet all of their energies were spent in trying to get them from us. And once, when the family, having been warned just in time, we hid them beneath the hearth plate as a group of ruffians knocked at the door and demanded entrance. And Joseph hid them in a hollow birch log on the way home from the forest once. And thrice on the way home he was attacked by men laying in wait for him. And then there was the time that I rode 10 miles on horseback as fast as I could go to warn Joseph of the danger of the place. That's when I was carrying our first child. I had written my parents regularly since my marriage, trying to remain as close to them as they would allow. Well, I had no idea if it was the news of my approaching motherhood that one day a wagon arrived at the Smith farm, my brother Alva driving it, with the astonishing news that Father wanted Joseph and I to pay him a long visit. Oh, well, I don't suppose Joseph was very anxious about being a guest in Father's house, but when he saw my wistful happiness at the invitation, he agreed to go. For you see, now he could begin his work, and no longer would we have the persecution and the strain as we had had. And again, as we left, my Joseph was inspired, for he took the Urim and Thummim and the ancient record, and he placed them in the bottom of a large barrel. And then he filled the barrel with beans. And shortly out of Palmyra, we were stopped by a mob of men, insisting that they look through our belongings, searching for the golden plates. And all they found were beans. Well, I think it was that time that my brother Alva had the change of his heart. Even though he never did join the church, he helped Joseph and I so many times after that. When we arrived in Harmony, I found peace again. Well, Joseph was treated courteously, though with reserve. I suppose that Father, in his way, was even kind. But Mother and I spent many hours in deep companionship, making the finely tucked little garments for the little one we all awaited. Well, we purchased 13 acres of farmland from Father, and on it was a little cabin. It wasn't much more than a roof over our heads, but it was ours. Oh, and we scrubbed the floors, and we scrubbed the walls, and borrowed furniture was carried through the door, and it soon became our first real home. Goodness, there was much to do. Joseph and I both worked so hard in those days. Well, you see, Joseph had to help Father with the farm work in order to pay for our land in cabin. And then every You see, Joseph now knew how to use the Urim and Thummim. He said when he looked through the stone at the letters, he was able to know their meaning. He could not explain the miracle, but it was so. Well, after Joseph had written for some weeks, he realized that, well, the work would go much more quickly if he had someone to write the words as he dictated. And he wrote to Martin Harris and asked him to be his scribe. Now, Martin Harris was a well-to-do farmer and friend of Father Smith's, who had insisted that Joseph take $50 before leaving for Palmyra. Well, Martin was thoroughly delighted with the prospect of becoming Joseph's scribe, and he quickly put his business affairs in order and left for Harmony. Joseph and I liked Martin. He was Joseph and I liked Martin. You see, he had been a good help in aiding with financial aid and also as acting as scribe. Well, he arrived in April, and by June 12th, he had written 116 pages of foolscap. Well, shortly after this, Martin desired to go home and pay his family a visit. And wishing to take some of the evidence of his work with him, he asked Joseph if he may take a few pages of the manuscript with him. Well, Joseph refused point blank. But Martin was persistent. And Joseph realized, after all, Martin being 22 years his senior, he was very responsible, and he would be involved in the work once it were published. And so a second season of prayers brought about the same answer. And finally, Joseph told Martin that he may take a few pages of the manuscript with him, providing he show it to none others than the 5 he had named, all being members of his family. Well, Martin left the next day, happily, with the evidence of his work with him. And it was only 3 days later that a little son was born to us. We named him Alva, after my brother who helped us get to Harmony. Our joy was brief, however, for he died the same day. We buried him on a beautiful spot on the edge of Father's farm. I was left desperately ill for a long time. Joseph never left my side. A more kind, loving man never lived than my Joseph. Well, as I began to rally and grow in strength, Joseph's burden of worry for me was being lifted, but it was being replaced by a different anxiety, one that started out as a mild wonder and grew daily into an agonizing certainty. You see, Martin Harris's date of arrival had come and passed, and we had heard nothing. arrived at Manchester to find Martin heart sick. He had broken his promise, and he had shown the manuscript to others than the 5 he had named. And he did not know how. They were stolen and were not recovered. Poor Joseph, he felt more guilty than Martin. And then upon arriving in Harmony, he found that Father's resentment had grown with the increase of his work. You see, Father had expected Joseph to help him more with the farm work. And instead, Joseph had spent many hours with his precious writing. Well, the situation there was becoming practically impossible. And then we had the Urim and Thummim and the ancient record taken from us. But one day, my Joseph arrived at the cabin door and announced that they had been returned to him. And now he could go on with his work. And work he did. One day he entered the door and asked, "Emma, you have a good, clear handwriting. Will you write for me for a few days?" I was speechless with delight, for I realized that it was most important that not one single word be lost. It is my belief that the Book of Mormon is of divine authenticity. I have not the slightest doubt, for no man could have done this without being inspired. Why, Joseph would dictate for hours, and I would write. And after a meal or an interruption, he would return, and without ever asking to see any portion of it or have any part read back to him, he would begin immediately where he had left off. It is improbable that a learned man could have done this, much less one so unlearned as my Joseph. It was April 15th, 1829, and a knock came to the door, and who do you think it was? Oliver Cowdery. Now, Oliver was a school teacher and had been a boarder at Father Smith's farm, and upon hearing about the work that Joseph was engaged in, he traveled quickly to Harmony to see if it were true for himself. It didn't take Oliver long to be convinced, and he, being an excellent penman, became Joseph's next scribe. However, when the persecution became too great, Oliver, Joseph, and I had to leave our little farmhouse, and we went to live with the well-known and prosperous German family and friends of Father Smith, the Whitmers. They were good people, and they cast their lot wholeheartedly into the work. And August of that same year, the manuscript was finished, completed, and April 6, 1830, the church was organized at the home of the Whitmers. And that June, that same June, I was baptized. I was baptized in a pond of water at Joseph Knight, near Joseph Knight's home in Colesville, New York. And then, in that same June, the first conference of the church was held, and there were 30 members in attendance. But again, with success came persecution. Oh yes, when baptisms were scheduled, mobs would form and try to heckle the candidates. And then when meetings were scheduled, they'd try to read it often. I would like to read it to you. Hearken unto the voice of the Lord your God, while I speak unto thee in a revelation I give thee unto thee concerning thy will. Behold, thy sins are forgiven thee, and thou art an elect lady, whom I have called. Murmur not because of the things thou hast not seen, for they are withheld from thee in the world which is in my wisdom at this time. And the office of thy calling shall be for a comfort unto my servant Joseph Smith, Jr., thy husband, in his affliction, with consoling words, and in the spirit of meekness. And it shall be given thee also to make a selection of sacred hymns, as it shall be given thee, which is pleasing unto me, to be had in my church. For my soul delighteth in the song, in the heart. Yea, the song of the righteous is a prayer unto me. Then I immediately began to gather a selection of sacred hymns. But due to my other responsibilities and my household chores, I was not able to have it published until 5 years later. I was especially pleased with the title page. It read, "A collection of sacred hymns for the Church of the Latter-day Saints, selected by Emma Smith." Well, the persecution had not ceased. And now it was beginning to affect many of the new members of the church, including the brand new converts. Joseph received revelation directing that the entire membership should make preparation to move to Ohio. Oh, and it was accepted warmly. For you see, it didn't matter at what great sacrifice we had to sell our homes. We had the hope that in Ohio we would find peace at last. And Kirtland was a lovely little town. And Joseph was home often to converse with me and to play with the children. Many missionaries were sent into the fields without purse or script, and hundreds of converts came into the church. Oh, the love that Joseph and I felt for those people. Well, Lucy was now doubly close to me, for you see, and I was grateful, for I deeply felt the need of a mother. Well, you see, it was after a long and very difficult time that twins, a little boy and girl, were born to us. They were born dead. I became physically well enough. The ache in my heart was great. It was about a week after the babies were born that Joseph came to sit with me, and he seemed to have something to say. He told me that on the same day that our little ones had died, that in my arms. And I held him close to me. I could feel the warmth of his tiny little body next to mine. And I looked for a long time into his little red face. And then looking up at Joseph to smile, I noticed he was completely unaware of us. There were tears rolling down his cheeks. He was looking at his new little daughter in Lucy's arms. When we were alone, Joseph told me, "Oh, Emma, sometimes I wish my calling would have been that of other men, so that I could be home with you and the children. But I cannot if I am to accomplish all that God has for me to do. But my darling, wherever I am, I want you to know you are in my heart and in my prayers. Distance, my darling, shall never separate us." The winter passed quickly that year, and soon I was able to take the little twins out of doors and trundle them in the yard in the little wooden wagon that Joseph had made for them. But they then became feverish and eventually desperately ill with measles. But while I was a good nurse, and Joseph and I, we took care of them in turn, and at length they seemed to be getting better. It was one late night in March, and I remember Joseph had just gotten the little boy settled down, and he laid him into the trundle bed, and being fully dressed and completely exhausted, Joseph laid himself down beside the baby, and soon they were both fast asleep. Stirred up the dying fire, and tended the little one. There. Everything will be all right, my son. Stop it. Everything will be all right. Who's there? Oh, Brother John. The neighbors lifted the heavy iron bar from the door, which held it locked, and they entered. The wind strove to comfort me as the men rode off after the intruders. You see, they had been awakened by the noise. Sidney Rigdon had also been seized and taken No one knew where. Finally, Joseph came home. He had been whipped, tarred, and left unconscious. He had regained consciousness and found his way home. I quickly drew the hot water from the crane on the fire. With the help of the other women, we began to scrape the tar from his skin. We did so until the sun rose the following morning, and he was left red, scarred. Joseph preached a sermon the following morning. He baptized 3 people. Sidney Rigdon remained at home. He had been beaten and drugged by the heels across stony ground, and his head was very badly battered. I, too, remained at home. I was utterly spent with exhaustion. What had we done, any of us, that we could not live in peace? The next morning, I cared for the little boy. Oh, his fever was very high, and his little body racked with a harsh cough. I knew this was much more difficult than the measles. He was cared for by the doctors, and hands were laid upon him for healing. But nothing helped. And on Friday he died. Poor baby Jed. In less than 4 years. I later learned that I would bear another child in the fall. And fear struck my whole being. But Joseph, he took my hand in his. Oh, Emma. Emma, it has been heartbreaking, these little ones. But I feel certain, my darling, that this baby will live to grow up. Now, what do you think we should call him? What do you think of Joseph? It was November 6th that little Joseph was born. And he had my eyes and soft brown hair. And he was healthy did hope that he would remain with us. And then 2 more sons were born to us, Frederick and Alexander. It was March 27th, 1836, that the Kirtland Temple was dedicated. I remember because by 8 o'clock in the morning, crowds were beginning to form, and by 9 o'clock, the building was filled to capacity. Oh, I shall never forget that day. But the days and the weeks and the months that followed were certainly filled with lots of danger, constant fear. Oh yes, often we had to leave our homes, and oftentimes in the middle of the night, and we would take what belongings we could get and leave the rest. And we would go sometimes in the dead of winter, and sometimes we would arrive at our destination there to find the situation worse than the one we had left behind. So it was when we went to Missouri. But from Missouri, we moved on to Illinois, and the spot we decided to settle there, we called Nauvoo. There were some happy days in Nauvoo. I remember sitting with my handsome husband and watching the building of the city beautiful. Oh, and yes, on parade days I rode beside my handsome husband, because being Lieutenant General, he was also the head of the Nauvoo Legion. Well, it was when our mansion house was almost completed that I was selected to journey to the city to select the furnishings. Oh, we needed everything. We needed the draperies, and we needed the carpetings, and, well, we needed all of the furnishings. I took friends, and we went by ferry. And even though money was of no consequence, I'm afraid my old habits came back, for I spent each amount prayerfully. But it was when that journey was almost completed that I saw the most beautiful bonnet I had ever seen. Oh, it was so elegant, so exquisite. How I did want to purchase it. But upon inspecting my old one, I found that it was still very serviceable and did have many years' use. So I did not purchase the new one. But I remember thinking, when I was on that ferry, how I wished a wind would just come along and blow the old one off right into the water. Well, one of the highlights of my life was March 17th, 1842, when I was selected to be the president of the Female Relief Society organization of Nauvoo. And Joseph said that it was a fulfillment of the being elect lady that was mentioned in my blessing. It was January 1842 that Joseph and I celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary. Oh, and even though we were the host and host, we served the table. Let me see, there were 4 in all. 21 sat down to the first, 20 at the second, 19 at the third, including Joseph and myself, and 15 at celebration lasted until 2 in the morning. Even though there were so many happy moments, I'm afraid that I could not feel that I felt that the happiness may not last. Of all the trials of my life, the most difficult one came when Joseph received the revelation from the Lord and introduced to the church the practice of plural marriage. I had been raised with the highest of standards and principles, and it was against everything that I'd ever been taught. And sometimes I knew it to be a commandment of God, and then others I was sure that it was not. I remember Hiram felt that if the commandment were written down and presented to me, I would understand it and believe it to be from the Lord. And Joseph warned Hiram, "You do not know Emma as well as I do." But Hiram insisted, and upon presenting it to me, I remember tearing it in 100 pieces, throwing it back at him, and I'll tell you, he got the lashing of his life. Well, I bet there are very few women in this audience tonight that wouldn't agree with me. Poor Joseph, he did suffer, and I felt this would be the ruination of all that he had worked so hard for. The things that were said of him, and the things that were written of him by men who did not understand. It was a commandment of God. It was not easy being the wife of the prophet chosen to usher in the last dispensation. And then there was the time that Joseph had been arrested for treason. Oh, everybody knew he was innocent, and he was going to jail willingly, and Governor Ford had assured their safe conduct. But many of the members were worried, including myself. I remember it was the night before Joseph left for Carthage. We climbed the stairs of the mansion house together to kiss the children good night. And as we were leaving young Joseph's room, Joseph turned and he said, "Take good care of all of them, Joseph, mother and the children." Young Joseph, blinking back the tears. "Yes, Father, I will." Well, later that night, Joseph and I sat alone in the mansion house looking out of the window, and we wondered, and my thoughts were so many. I wondered how their stay at Carthage would be, and I wondered if they would be treated fairly, and if they would return to us in safety as they had always done before. And then my thoughts went to the unborn child I carried. Oh, would he be able to survive the turmoil and the frustration into which he was being born? But Joseph broke the silence with a question. "Emma, have you ever seriously considered the true meaning of the word elect?" done very well, Joseph, but I tried. And then Joseph took my hand in his. Emma, no woman could have done that. It was early the next morning when the men began to gather on the lawn of the mansion house. And Joseph, he kissed me goodbye. And he jested with the children at the door. We had agreed to remain strong for their sakes. The next few days went about almost mechanically. I remember doing the laundry, taking care of the children, cleaning the house, and doing the mending. The morning of the 27th dawned hot and clear, and I had just finished doing the evening dishes, and I was removing my apron when I suddenly became aware of the furious clatter of hoofs coming down the road. And I ran through the door and to the gate, and my nephew, Lorenzo Wasson, flung himself from his horse, yelling, "Aunt Emma! Aunt Emma! Uncle Joseph and Uncle Hiram have just been shot and killed." I don't remember much of the remainder of the evening. Oh yes, friends and guests were invited and strolled throughout the mansion house. I was struck with shock and grief. The next morning, I realized they were bringing the bodies home. Loving hands lifted them from the wagon and carried them into the mansion and into the dining room. And they were laid on the couches. Joseph! Your face. They say I fainted 5 times that day. I was concerned for the children and old Mother Lucy. But I had no more strength left in me. And later that night, I cried unto the Lord. Oh, God! Why am I thus afflicted? Why am I a widow, and my children orphans? began to rise, I had no more tears left in me. And I could think more rationally. And I thought, if I'd had one prayer, one blessing, answered, one wish, it would have been that Joseph remained true to his responsibility and then be taken quickly home to be. I was blessed with that one wish, for Joseph was safe with his father in heaven now. But I am so alone. Joseph, you were my strength, my security. Without you, what will I do?
Emma remained in Nauvoo and later married Major Charles C. Byland. Lucy Mack chose to live with this daughter-in-law in her remaining years and wrote the following tribute. I have never seen a woman in my life who would endure every species of fatigue and hardship from month to month, from year to year, with that unflinching courage, zeal, and patience to endure. She has been tossed on the ocean of uncertainty. She has breasted the storms of persecution and buffeted the rage of men and devils, which would have borne down